and welcome back to another episode of the Young Dad Podcast. Whether you're outside grilling, mowing the lawn, like my shirt kind of, wearing dirty diapers, not wearing dirty diapers, changing dirty diapers. If you're wearing them, cool, then you need to change yours too. Or whatever you're doing, wherever you're at. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in today. I'm your host, Jay, and today I have a special guest who's all about unlocking your full potential through the power of accountability. I know accountability is a scary word, guys. It's okay. It's going to be okay. Joining me today is Robert Hunt, also known as the Accountability Guy. Robert is a seasoned business owner, executive coach, and co-author of the insightful book, Nobody Cares Until You Do. With over 20 years of experience as a business owner and executive coach, Robert helps leaders remove the obstacles that keep them from being their best. He runs CEO peer groups in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, guiding executives to reach their goals and lead more effectively beyond his professional accomplishment. Robert is a devoted husband of 25 years, a father to 2 adult children, and a follower of Christ. So, love that. He's passionate about his faith, family, and helping others find freedom and power through a life of accountability. I know, guys, we're going to say that word a lot. It's okay. In today's episode, we'll dive deep into what it truly means to be accountable, why it's essential in both personal and professional life, and how embracing accountability can lead to achieving your goals and living the life you really want. So grab a seat, grab a juice box, grab a snack, and Robert, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful introduction.
I love it. I love doing great introductions because I feel like it just kind of set the stage a little bit. So a little bit about your story here, and then please fill in a little bit more, whatever you like to add on to this. So your journey to becoming the accountability guy is both inspiring and transformative. After years of navigating the challenges of business ownership and leadership, you recognize a common thread among those struggling to reach their full potential: a lack of personal accountability. Guys, it's going to be okay. Breathe. Accountability is so important. Something we stress on the show over and over and over again. The realization led to him to co-author the book Nobody Cares Until You Do, which we'll also get into, where Robert explores the profound impact of self-accountability on success and fulfillment. Robert's passion for helping others stems from your own experiences overcoming obstacles in business and life. Dedication to faith, family, and personal growth shaped your approach to coaching and leadership, making you a sought-after mentor for executives and entrepreneurs alike. So, is there anything else you want to add to kind of your story here of how you became the accountability guy, or about the book Nobody Cares Until You Do?
I think I'll start with the reminder that accountability is not a bad word. That we grew up feeling like it was a punishment word. I'm going to hold you accountable for this, like a threat. But if you can switch the way you look at it to see it as freedom and power and hope, we as dads, we have a lot of responsibility. And we are responsible for certain things. But if you are truly going to be accountable, that means that you proactively look at what you want to do and you make a plan towards it and you own the plan. Accountability is to take account for all the things that you are going to do, and you have the ability then to go do something in that direction. Responsibility is to respond to things that happen, like when your kid grows up and is a rebellious child. You respond to that, how you deal with it. But if you didn't want a rebellious child, what would you have done in the world of accountability that proactively created a journey that hopefully will teach the child not to be a rebellious child? So I think that's you got to first by starting to look at the word differently. If you really want a great life, you have to be accountable, because then you can create the plan and you can go chase it. And to me, that's more fun than just having the blame for things.
Right. No, there's a big difference here in being proactive and being reactive. Right. We always want to take the proactive approach when it comes to raising our children, when it comes to in our relationships, in our friendships, in our work, in pretty much everything. We would much rather have a proactive approach to all these things rather than a reactive approach.
Well, we say that, but we really don't do it. I mean, if you ask people, what's your plan for your kid? Show me your written plan for your kid. 99% of the people are going to go, I don't have a written plan. Well, I have some thoughts, but we wouldn't start a business like that. This is where my journey with business owners has carried over through my personal life, and looking at the things that you're not allowed to do in the business world. You'd be a fool to go to a bank and say, hey, I'm starting a business. Well, what are you going to do? I don't know. Well, how are you going to get there? I don't know. How much money are you going to make? I don't know. They wouldn't give you a dime. But we think that we'll just have a idea in our mind of how we're going to raise our kids to grow up to be wonderful contributors in society, but we don't have a plan. And so the foolishness of that is irresponsible. And if you're going to be accountable for the children that you raise, the journey you take them on, you have to be proactive and it has to be very intentional.
Yes, we have to be proactive and intentional. Those are so important because then we're just reactive, right? And if we're not proactive and intentional, then a lot of things can fall by the wayside very easily, very quickly with our children, especially as they get older and they grow and they grow and they grow. So when it comes to everything, so this is one question I like to ask all my guests, kind of towards the top here, is what's a hill that you're willing to die on when it comes to accountability and personal growth?
The hill that I would die on is the idea that everyone owns their own journey. And as much as you want to be mad at the government or your spouse or God for whatever problems are in your life, at the end of the day, it's your journey. And accountability is the reminder that if you own it, you have the power to do something about it. If you don't own it, you live life as a victim. Nobody wants to be known as a victim, but we do it all the time. And so I think to put it in the simplest way, we just have to have this idea that we own it. I think that's the one, if you could have everybody have that mindset, it would be a very different world.
I couldn't agree with that more because there's something about that self-responsibility, right? To where we're responsible for self. That self-responsibility, that self-accountability, those two things in turn equal self-love. When we own our choices, when we own our decisions, when we own up to the things that we've done along the way or that we're continuously doing, then that's a way that we show that we care about ourselves, that we love ourselves, that we are engaged with ourselves, right? It's really easy to blame, like especially if someone gets cheated on in a relationship, right? It's really easy to blame the other person, right? Whose heart is that? Whose feelings are those that are dealing with them? Does the other person care? Because if the other person cared, then maybe they wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
whose feelings are they at the end of the day?
Let's look
Your
at it from the
feelings.
perspective of our kids. If your kid is fat, whose fault is that? Well, who buys the groceries? So your kid's not driving down the street and picking up ding dongs on their own. You're the one bringing home the food that allows them to get fat. Now, if you say, well, they're eating bad at school, I can't watch them 24 hours a day. Well, that's just one meal. How about breakfast and dinner? You can control that one. So when we have things that we're quick to make excuses or blame or say we can't do anything about it, those are the victim mindsets that hold us back. And so we have to look at everything we're doing with the idea that am I chasing the life I really want? And if I'm not, why? And if I'm willing to own it, then I have the freedom and the power to do something about it. I think that's the thing I see with a lot of dads is they complain and whine about things, but they don't own it. If your kid spends too much time on their phone, don't give them a phone. Well, everyone has to have a phone. They don't. They don't. Many children do not have a phone. They're just not having a phone. So, I mean, we would blame how many hours they watch TV. Don't give them a TV. Why'd you put a TV in their room? And then you're saying they're watching too many hours of TV. The decisions that we make as a dad is a ripple effect in our family. And if we're not walking with God and we're not showing the joy of walking with the Lord in our lives and our kids grow up and don't want anything to do with God, you need to be accountable for the life you lived in front of them that makes them not interested in what you know. Now, you can't control what they do and what they believe, but if you're not modeling it, where are they going to pick it up from? Where is that going to come from? It would make sense that they wouldn't embrace it if you're not embracing it.
Yeah. No, 100%. Because they're going to do as you do, right? They're going to do as you do. They're going to say what you say. Both those things are true at the same time. And there's a psychological theory. It's called choice theory, right? I'm a mental health clinician, but it's choice theory. It's very simple. Everything you do, Robert, you have a choice. Everything the listener does, you have a choice. You have a choice to do it, not to do it. You have a choice to go eat 5 hamburgers, or you have a choice to eat a salad with some chicken on top, right? You have a choice to buy a thing of ding dongs or to buy a thing of strawberries, right? There's always these choices. There's always everything you do. There's a choice, and every one of those choices is going to have a ripple effect. Every one of those choices is going to have a consequence later. And going back to the lunch thing, even there's a choice, right? Because you have a choice to either A, let them have school lunch, which we know is pretty processed and not the greatest, not the healthiest, not the most filling, and not the most sustainable, versus you have a choice to also pack them a lunch that you know is healthy, high in protein, high in veggies, things like that. So there's always a choice, right? There's always a choice. There's always a choice. Just like our relationship with God, right? There's always a choice. We can choose to follow, we can choose not to follow. I'm a man of faith myself, I'm a Christian, so there's that choice. But it's a choice every single day, right? Faith without works is dead, is dead. And so if you're not actively working on your faith, if you're not actively working on making better choices with your health, with your family, with your kids, and allowing them to do things different. And if you're just being complacent and letting them complain, or you're complaining as a dad while your kids are doing all these things, then you have to take action. You have to get off your ass and do something, because you have to, and you have to make changes, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. When you make
And
that
with
choice,
that in mind, when you have accountability in your life, you as a dad, you have to make the decisions of the life that you want, to raise the kids the way you want, to live the life with the marriage that you want. And too often we as dads say, well, I can't. Well, that's not true. You really need to replace that with the word I won't. When you say, well, I can't take time off from my work because my work's so busy. No, that's the choice you make. You don't have to have that job. You can go to another company that lets you leave on time and go to your kids' soccer games. You can make a choice to tell your work, hey, I'm leaving to go do this, and they can work around you. You have lots of choices. Well, I don't have a degree, so I have to get whatever job Well, then go get a degree. We continue to make excuses or blame or say, I can't. And those things keep us as a victim. And so, as a dad, if you're looking at the life that you're trying to build and you're not doing it, it's on you to own it. Make the changes that are required to live the life you want, to get the results that you want to get in your marriage and in your health and with your kids. That is a choice that you have to own.
yeah, and you have to own it. These are all choices. These are all your choices. You do the opposite. Do something different. So, Robert, can you elaborate from your perspective on? I want to jump into this A word we keep bringing up here. We keep bringing up this A word. We brought it up a lot in the intro, but accountability. We touched on it briefly, right, with the hill you're willing to die on, a little bit before that in your story. But can you elaborate on what it truly means to be accountable in life?
Yeah, and the simplest terms is you own it. That's the easiest way to describe it, is you own it. And we experience this in our own life. And that's really what led us to write the book a couple of years ago. When in 2019, we had amassed $90,000 in debt. And that did not include the house or the cars. And so we were stressed. We were living in a very difficult situation. And year after year, we kept thinking, okay, I mean, next year it'll get better. The business will take off. We'll get enough to get out of debt. And every year we got more and more into debt. And so in 2019, we just decided we're not owning this. We are making excuses. We're blaming. We're waiting and hoping that's going to get better. And these are all things that have kept us as a victim. We realize that. So we decided that in order to own it, we needed to do something that is very hard to do. We sold our house and we took all that money and we paid off our debt. Now, that was a big decision, and that was a very hard decision emotionally. It was a hard decision to get the house sold, find a place to rent, start over, purge our house. None of our furniture could go with us because it was a big house and had big furniture. So the rental house that we live in today would have never fit any of that stuff. And so we sold it all for pennies on the dollar, and even our clothes we had to donate because the was half the closet space or less. And so that kind of reset the world for us. But we realized through that journey that when we take control of it, we now have the power to do something about it. And it gave us hope. And we walked the journey, sold the house, paid off our debt, started over, and felt such freedom and such peace in our lives because we weren't held back by the worry and the fear about debt and how are we going to make payments and how are we going to get by. And it was a reset. So we watched the freedom and power that comes with accountability. And that's why we go around telling people about it, because we want them to understand, you don't like your life, change it. You don't like what's going on, do something different. When you own it, you have the power to do something about it. But as long as you keep making excuses, blaming other people, or saying you can't, or waiting and hoping, you will play the role of a victim in your life and you'll be stuck. But when you take accountability for everything, that's the moment you gain the power to change everything.
No, I love that. That's so important. You have to own it, right? We have to own up to it. So, why do you think so many people struggle with that? Why do you think so many people struggle with that accountability, with the ownership of it? Like, what are those obstacles that are preventing so many people from embracing that embracing the owning it.
Well, it's the way the world works these days. It's very common for all of us to blame and make excuses. If you said something in public, well, I'd like to do that, but I can't. Everybody would go like, yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. That makes sense. Oh, I'd like to do this, but my boss is a jerk. Oh, yeah, I got a bad boss too. Everyone loves to congratulate everyone else being a victim. We don't see it that way, but we've just become so used to the conversation. If you were to say, well, I just don't want to have any debt, so I'm going to do this, they'd be like, wow, you're crazy. What's the big deal? Everybody has debt. I mean, you're celebrated. You got a car? Loan. Everyone's happy for your car loan. You got a new house? Loan. That house loan, in most people in the world, we don't buy a house, we buy a mortgage. And then we buy a car loan and we're paying on it and everyone's excited for us. And it's just the normal way of doing it with student loans and boat loans and line of equity loans to pay off the credit cards you jacked up. So we've just become comfortable with this whole mindset. So it's odd. People don't recognize it in the first place. But then we're also used to making excuses and blaming and just saying we can't. It's the common language. And I think most people have fear that if they do these things, it'll be really hard. So they choose the slow, difficult hard instead of that one moment in time hard. For us, selling our house was really hard, but that was occurred from September of 2019 to March of 2020. And by April, we paid off everything. So over 6 months of hard, we got our lives back. And so for the last 4 years, we've been living a different life than we'd been living for the previous 4 years before that, where we were miserable in debt. So I think it'd be better to have a short-term bummer journey than to stay in a cruddy journey for a long time. And that's the power of accountability where you can change your life.
Yeah, right. Like I was talking to a psychologist on the podcast. His name is Brian, Dr. Brian, and the way that he phrases that every storm runs out of rain, right? Every single storm runs out of rain. So no matter how hard, the storm's going to run out of rain eventually. But some of those storms can last longer if you're choosing to have them last longer, like you're saying here. And sometimes that little bit of suck can go a long way. A little bit of just living through the suck, a little bit of just pushing through the sucky stuff is okay because hard things are good. Hard things are good. It's good to do hard things. It's good to teach our kids to do hard things. It's
Right.
good to have them learn how to do difficult things. If our kids never learn how to do anything difficult and then they're faced with something difficult when they're adults, how are they going to respond?
Right. Yeah.
Right?
And we're accountable to proactively create opportunities for it to be hard for our kids because life is hard. And if you don't give them the chance to struggle and suffer and worry about, will I get my thing done on time? Can I handle this? Can I push myself? You're not doing them a service. When they get older and they face these things, they quit their job because it's hard, or they get fired because it's hard and they can't hold up to it. So you're not doing them a favor by making their life easy when they're little kids. You need to get them out and face the realities that work is hard, life is hard. You'll have to take a risk, you'll have to push yourself, but you can do it.
Yeah. No, 100%. And we have to create those opportunities. We have to give our kids opportunities to learn all the things, right? We can't just have them, lifted up all the time to be coddled to and to be taken care of. Like, yes, they're going to be taken care of all the time, right? Food, water, shelter, basic needs, all those things are going to be met, or should hopefully always be being met all the time, right? But we have to let them learn to struggle, right? We have to let them learn to do things on their own, to, problem solve, to build that resilience, to build that resourcefulness, because those are life skills. If you don't have them, then you're going to really struggle when you're out in the real world.
Right.
And if our kids are
And it
struggling out in the
starts when
real
they're
world, it
super
all comes
young.
back.
When
Yeah,
they're very young, you can have them fold laundry. When they're very young, you can have them set the table with you. There's a million things your kid can and will and should be doing all day long to contribute to the home. So they are used to, I get up, I make my bed, I clean my room, I put my toys away. I go in the living room, I look for my toys and my things there, and I put them where they belong. You can create those moments, and there doesn't have to be a suffering hard, go out and weld this torch, go out and mow the yard. They're little children, fine, give them little chores. But as they grow up, they can take more and more, and you're doing them a great service when you teach them a work ethic.
yeah. No, our kids have to be able to do things, and it all starts at home. Kind of like exactly how you're alluding to there. It all starts at home, right? It starts when they're little. Little kids can do little jobs. They can unload a dishwasher. They can fold laundry. They can be helpful. Teenagers can do a bit more. They can go sweat in the sun and mow the lawn and rake
Yeah.
leaves and
When
do
my
these
son
things,
was a
right?
little boy, he was too short to push the lawnmower well because it would throw grass in his face. He was down by the handle. So he put on his transformer helmet and would mow the yard with the transformer helmet on so the grass wouldn't get up in his face. I got some great pictures of him mowing the yard, and he's just at the height of the handlebars, but he did a horrible job. He cut the heads off of sprinklers. He missed parts, but he got better and better and better over time. And yeah, it was hard, but he learned to face challenges, and he can handle everything now. This guy's ready for life, and not just mowing the yard, but he's learned to work and to be responsible and to push yourself.
Yeah, and problem solving, right? Problem solving. I mess up, try again. Can't see, grass keeps hitting me in the face. Let me get something to fix that kind of thing. And kids are so smart, right? And the cool thing about the brain, about the human brain, is that if we if we just try it, right, the brain will fix itself. We can't learn 2 plus 2 right away, right? 2 plus 2 may equal 5 at first. 2 plus 2 may only equal 3. No, it equals 4. Okay, brain's going to be trained and retrained. Okay, 2 plus 2 is 4 now. Got it. That's locked in. 3, 6, 12, 15, 9, 18 kind of thing, right? No, my counting by threes is off. But you have to, the thing with that is that the brain will learn as the more you try. You
That's right.
can't learn, the brain can't fix itself if you're not trying. Our kids can't, or kids' brains can't learn. The kid's brain can't develop these habits, these routines and things if they're not given the chance, if they don't fail, if they don't mess up. Failure's good. Failure's good. It's good to fail. There's nothing wrong with failing.
Right.
Failure's
And that
encouraged.
still applies to us adults too, by the way. I think that even though we're older, we still have those moments of doubt and fear and worry. And we live in a time where so much change is going on and so much emotion is going on in the world. And I think those of us who are being real about it, it is a scary time in a lot of ways, just in the relationships that we have. So I think your ability to be able to press on and to realize that I don't know everything and I'm going to have to learn and adjust as I go. The newer generation of leaders is going to be very different than the last one. And us as older people are going to make way for the Gen Zs to come out and start leading. And they're going to have a very different vibe. They're going to have a very different perspective on the world. And we have to figure out a way to work with them and not make fun of them and not pick at them and not criticize them. We've got to embrace them and help them to take over because it's their world. Where I won't be around for another 30, 40 years. I'll be gone, but I want my son to have another 30, 40, 50, 60 years left in him, and he's going to be in charge. So I've got to empower him to make good decisions and be ready. Again, that's our accountability as adults to create the next generation of leaders.
True. Very true. Even though it's really easy to make fun of Gen Z.
Yeah, they make fun of us baby boomers too.
Yeah. No, they make fun of everyone older than them. It's like I have a coworker. I'm a millennial, but I have a coworker who's a Gen Z, and he'll just be like, "Oh, that's that old head talking. Oh, that's that old person in you talking. That's that boomer. That's some of that boomer talk." I'm like, bro, like I'm a millennial, like I'm just a few years older than you. He's like, yeah, but there is such a difference, even in like a few years, like between the two generations. Like there's a big difference here, and but it's really cool to see. We do want to empower our kids, especially to take over, to lead the world, right? We have to lead them a better world, and we have to help them to feel ready, right? There's a lot of things that we can do to help our kids feel ready, but teaching them to be accountable is one. Helping them learn to be accountable is one. But for you, is it possible to make someone be accountable?
No, no. We say that term a lot. It's misused. Nobody can make anyone be accountable. You can only create a place where they want to be accountable. And in your own journey with your kids, if you say, "Hey, I want you to brush your teeth every day," they could go in there, run the water over the toothbrush and put it back and say they brushed their teeth, and you won't really know. Or they could even put the toothbrush in their mouth with toothpaste on it, brush around twice and leave. They could do a horrible job. So the only way that we're really going to know is when they get all these cavities that are popping up in their mouth. And so we can't make them be accountable, but we can teach them what accountability looks like. And we can encourage them by understanding when you go to the dentist and that guy puts a big needle in your mouth and hurts your mouth from the shot, and then it drills and hooks it and shoves stuff. You hate that. You don't like that. Well, the way to avoid that is to brush your teeth and floss every day. And that will minimize that result. You'll probably still get some cavity at some point for some reason, just the way your mouth is, but you teach them what accountability looks like and why. But it's up to them to do it. Any more than you can't make your kid believe something or have the initiative or desire to be something. All you can do is again proactively create what you want to see at the end, and then it's up to them. They'll grow up to vote for who they want to vote for and marry who they want to marry and live the life they want to live. You cannot hold them accountable to live out the faith that you have or the view that you have or the perspective on finances, but you want to create a moment where they can see the value of it and embrace it. That part you can do. The result is up to them.
100%. Because the choice is ultimately theirs, right? The choice is theirs, but it's our responsibility as dad, parents in general. I have a lot of moms that listen to this, so I don't want to exclude and make it feel exclusionary. But it's our job as parents to make sure we lay that really strong foundation, right? By having those ongoing conversations, by having those conversations time and time again. And it's one of those proactive steps is if we're having our conversations with our kids from when they're really young at an age appropriate level and that conversation just matures as they mature, then they're going to be pretty set because they're not going to be going out and looking for information in other places, right? They know that their information comes from mom and dad. It comes from at home. That's where I get all my information. That's where I get all the things I need is from mom and dad at home. Like I'm fully fulfilled in all the information. I don't need to go look elsewhere for the fulfillment, for the information, for the conversation, for someone to love me or all these things.
And it may not work out that way. I mean, you may do a great job as a parent and your kid still gets to decide who they want to be. And I know some really wonderful parents who've had one child that grew up that in their description would be this perfect child, and another child that grew up that would be described by them as being a rebellious child. And yet they loved them and raised them both the same, but the spirit of one was a very different spirit than the other child. And so your ability to get the result you're looking for is not guaranteed. You have to do what you can do the best you can. That's what you're accountable for. And then your child will be accountable for the choices they make. And if they make bad choices, they got to own it. You can't do it for them. They have to own that.
100%. But all we can do is try, right? All we can do is try.
Yeah.
Put that foundation out there. Love
Right.
them, raise them, teach them, help them learn, and hopefully it works out. Because even though they're wild and rebellious, hopefully some of those things stick, right? So then they're not too wild and rebellious. And it's like a nice fine gray area to where the rebellion is okay. You do
And
you,
it's hard to know if it sticks, right? I mean, because you
right?
won't know till I'm 61. I think a lot of the things that my mom lived out and modeled for me didn't really kick in till I was in my 30s. And I grew up, watching her and watching the world, and it wasn't really something I owned until I got into my 30s. But then there was a whole lot of it that I still didn't own up until 5 years ago when I really started looking at my life and going, I'm not living the life I want. And I don't own this. I'm a victim of everything. And it wasn't until I walked that journey of seeing the power of accountability that I changed and really started to own everything. I still make mistakes today, but I see it and I go, wait, that's blame. Don't blame, own it. And I'll catch myself quickly because my natural response is to blame or make excuses or say I can't. And I'm really aware of that. The shorter distance between when I say that and when I redirect. But it's going to be a journey for the rest of your lives. You don't know when the results will kick in. Again, create a map, a vision of a plan, and be intentional and go chase it. But again, at the end, your kids are accountable for their own results, and that's just gonna how it's gonna be.
All we can be there in the end is to support them, right? We can just be supportive in the very end, love them, shower them with love, shower them with whatever they need in those moments to help them go grow through what they're going through, right? In the very end. So that's what we're
Yeah.
there for. That's our job. What are some of those practical steps that one can take, that the average dad can take to become more accountable in their daily life?
Yeah. First of all, is be aware of what it looks like when you're a victim. If you're making excuses or you're blaming someone or you're saying I can't when you really should be saying I won't, when you're saying I can't or you're waiting and hoping, those four things are traps. Those are things you can see. Did I blame someone? Did I make an excuse? Am I saying I can't or am I waiting and hoping it will get better? Once you're aware of those traps, then you can make the decision, hey, I want to own this. I want to do something about this. And then you can take the plan to go do something. You can acknowledge the reality of where you're at. You can embrace the suck and you can find a solution and you can make it happen. That's the things we outline in our book, the 4 traps and the 4 steps to be victorious. And so you can look at those things in your life and find out where you're using those victim roles and practice the art of owning it, making a solution, and getting it done. And I think that's the steps that is easier done when you have a buddy or someone to walk the journey with, not only from an accountability perspective, because when you declare and you tell someone else, hey, I'm not happy with my marriage, I want to have a better marriage, I don't like the way my marriage is, and here's what I'm going to do. We're going to go to counseling together, and I'm going to change jobs because all I do is travel. I'm never around, and I feel like we've grown apart, and I want to reinvest in my marriage and save it. And so you tell someone, these are the steps I'm going to take. And then they don't hold you accountable. You hold yourself accountable, but they can encourage you along the way. They can pray for you. They can send you notes. They can call you. They can check in. You can meet with them on a regular basis and share your frustrations and get the encouragement from them. But it is your journey and you own it. But inviting someone in to declare where you're going to go, the little bit of peer pressure goes a long way. If I tell you, hey, man, I got to lose weight, Jay, and I'm not going to eat any more fattening food. And then you and I go out to dinner and I'm like, cheeseburger. And you're like, well, I thought you were going to lose weight. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll have the salad with chicken on it. You can encourage me. Now, you didn't make me. I could go, oh, it's just one time. I'm going to have a hamburger today. And you didn't make me. I'm accountable. But you could remind me as a friend. And so peer pressure is very helpful to stick with the journey that we want to go on once we decide what we want our life to look.
Yeah, there's a difference between that positive peer pressure and that negative peer pressure, right? And that positive peer pressure can be good,
Yeah.
but it's important to tell the right people the right things, right? It's important to tell the right people the right things about our different situations. Because what we don't want to happen is we don't want it to become weaponized against us, right? We don't want it to become something negative toward us, right? To where someone has some fuel for the fire. We have to be picky and choosy for what we tell to who, right? But
Yeah,
at
I
the
think it's probably going to be the other way around where some people will peer pressure you into not doing the things that you want to do. So you got to be careful of those friends because a lot of times the people we surround ourselves with when we're not being accountable will not dig the way we're living when we choose to be accountable because that will make them feel bad about the fact that they're not accountable. So a lot of times you'll say, "Hey, I'm going to go work on this. I'm work on my marriage," and they'll go, "Oh, your marriage is fine. Your wife's a rag. Don't worry about it." And that's not the kind of encouragement that you need. You need someone who say, hey, I want to support you. What do I do? And they buy into your journey and your choice in a good way. But a lot of times your friends will be uncomfortable with the choice you're making and will want to say, it's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. You're fine. And you need the kinds of friends who will say, yes, man, I'm on your side. Let me encourage you.
Yeah, that buy-in goes a long way, right? Especially with our kids, especially with our significant others. We have to be bought in, right, to the things that they want to do, to the things that they want to improve in, and we have to be fully supportive. Even if it's like a blind support, especially when our kids want to do something a little crazy or a little weird, a little outside the box, something we're kind of unsure about, like, okay, sure, sounds great, let's do it, kind of thing. Or when they want to start something new, or pick up a new hobby, talent, interest, something that we've never done for a second in our lives that they're interested in all of a sudden. Because that's our job as fathers, right? It's our job as fathers to lead them and guide them, right? To do the things. Like you look back at I like to call it the Little House on the Prairie times, like the 1950s, right? To where, or maybe earlier, before too, to where the moms would raise the sons and the daughters till they were about 6, 7 years old. Then the sons would go with the fathers to work every single day until they were old enough to go and choose the things that they wanted to do. When they were old enough, the son would say, I want to go do this. And so then the father would take them to the best, let's say it was blacksmith, right? The father would find the best blacksmith he knew and take him there and then oversee his apprenticeship and then oversee him doing it day in, day out. While working, doing the thing on the farm, they would do all the things together, day in, day out, together. And the father would oversee that process, right? Even if he didn't know anything about being a blacksmith, right? He would go and he would oversee the son, oversee him doing these things, see him all the way through to the end. And that's our responsibility. And same for the mothers, right? The mothers would do it just with the daughters, kind of thing. But it's so important to oversee what our kids are doing, to jump on those things that inspire them, that excite them, that are fueling them, right? And to get excited with them, right? If they like Lightning McQueen and they're really into cars, guess what? You're really into cars now. If you're a dad with daughters, guess what? They like Barbies, you like Barbies.
Yeah.
If you're a dad with a swimmer and you hate swimming, you don't like water, guess what? You're swimming now. Um, and so that's your new life, that's your new reality. But you have to be excited about the things they're excited for and try the new things, because you never know. You getting out of your comfort zone may lead to some really cool change as well, and then you create a stronger bond with your child as well, and that strong bond can really lead to some really cool, incredible things.
Yeah, I agree.
So, all right, any thing here before we get into the fun questions that you want to add in about being accountable, building accountability at all? I hopefully our listeners feel a little bit better saying that word, hearing that word now after about 35 minutes.
Yeah, I hope they have really started to see accountability in a different light. The thing I'll encourage your listeners is don't be lazy. And that's a harsh word. And nobody would like to be thought of as lazy. But statistically, the IRS says out of 100 people, one person will end their life rich, three will end their life well off, 33 or some number like that will be able to live their last days okay. But 55% of Americans will need someone else to take care of them until they die. And we have like 50 years to plan for our retirement. And yet most people are not planning for it. They have no savings and they have no future. Certainly not enough to give you a life that you can live on your own without any help. And so we're lazy. We know that we should be saving X amount per month, but we decide to do this and have that and buy this. And, we know what we're supposed to do. We just don't do it. We know we're supposed to eat 3 servings of vegetables a day or 5. I have forget. No, I never eat vegetables, so I have no idea what that is. But we know we're supposed to do. We're just lazy. And so start looking at the things you're not doing and say to yourself, I'm being lazy. Because if you were not lazy, you would floss your teeth because you're supposed to floss it every day. If you were not lazy, you'd start by putting away 10% into your savings account every paycheck automatically, and you don't ever touch it. It's gone. When you don't do that, you're being lazy. So, I mean, these are the kind of decisions that we as adults need to make. And if we're going to be accountable for our lives, we've got to own the process and what the result's going to be. So don't be lazy today and think you'll do it tomorrow. Start right now today and own your journey and do those things that you're supposed to do. Don't be lazy.
Yeah, no. And when it comes to the vegetables, Robert, I want to tell you, there's at the supplement shop, like GNC vitamin shop, go and get a greens powder. That'll supplement you. That's the nice, easy, lazy way to make sure that you're still getting those nutrients and getting those veggies and fruits in. So, highly recommend a good greens powder. I have a couple I can recommend you on post show, but that's my way of doing it. I'm not a big vegetable guy either, but there is a way to be proactively lazy in that way. We'll make sure you get the right amount of servings every day. But no, it's really easy to be lazy. It's really easy not to take that responsibility and not plan ahead. So don't be lazy. It's really easier said than done. But again, it comes back to being proactive. It comes back to being accountable. It comes back to being responsible. All those things, right? That's what you're supposed to do. These are all choices that you make every single day, every single moment of every single day. You have a choice. You make a choice and you make it one way or another, and you know exactly what you're doing in that moment. So don't try to tell me, oh, I didn't have any control over that choice. Bullshit, you did. You have
It's an
control
excuse.
over
That's an
every
excuse.
single choice. So yeah. All right, let's jump into some fun questions here to wrap us up real quick. Let me see. I have a few here. That one kind of touched on already. That one's not very fun.
Yeah, give me a fun one.
I know. I'm like trying to think. They're all like fun about accountability though. Let's see. Does pineapple go on pizza, Robert?
It does go on pizza, but most good pizza eaters don't eat that.
True. I like to think it can go on pizza, just not mine. It can go on yours, but not mine. How important is your faith in your everyday life? Being able to follow your faith every single day. I didn't get to touch on this one. I like touching on it when I'm able to touch on it, of course.
Yeah.
Podcast, I have a platform for a reason. I get to use it to talk about Christ if I want to talk about Christ. So, how do you balance all the roles and maintaining accountability in all the areas that you have to be accountable for?
Well, I'm number one accountable to God for the life He's given me. And we are going to be held accountable. Someday we will stand before God and He will ask us how we did with the life that He gave us. I'm responsible to give 10% of the money I make to the church in support of the ministries that are going out to share the gospel with the world. But I'm accountable for the other 90% and what I do with it in a way that pleases God. And so if I blow all that 90% plus more on myself and I don't have any when someone in need around me has a need, I can't care for the world around me. I selfishly use it on myself, and God is going to hold me accountable for the way I use his money. That 100% of that money came from God's very gracious hand. How I use it, he is going to judge me on how I did with that. So I'm accountable to him. So everything we do, our decisions of how we run our business, how we treat our customers and our employees, how we look at the world around us, and how we use the money that we make and we generate our business, it's all something we're accountable to God. And we should use it with the mindset that we're pleasing the Lord with the gifts he's given us.
Amen to that. If you could sit down and have dinner with any three figures that you deem as like kings of accountability or queens of accountability, who are three people that you would want to sit down with, dead or alive, historical or not?
Of accountability. 3 people?
Yep, three people that you would want to sit down and have a meal with.
Well, certainly Jesus is the most accountable person I've ever heard about or experienced. So I'd want to hang with him. Let's see. I don't see a lot of people being accountable. There are people that fascinate me.
We live in America, so yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, there's people, but everyone blames, everyone makes excuses. My own clients, there's some really accountable people in many ways, but there's other parts of their life they don't own. They might run a very successful business, but their marriage is falling apart. They might have a lot of money, but they've rejected God. I think I don't see it with people based on accountability. I don't know. Certainly, my wife, I'd want to have dinner with her because she's very accountable. She's been a part of this journey.
Let's take accountability out of the equation then. Who else would you want to sit down and have a meal with?
Okay. Well, I like Ben Rector. He's an artist that I follow, and I like him a lot. So I'd want to hang out with him. I really thought George Bush, the second one, did a phenomenal job running our country in a really difficult time. So he wasn't perfect in the decisions he made, but I thought he was a cool guy. How he dealt with his alcoholism and made a choice to own his life. He's a guy who's been accountable. He owned it. He didn't always make the right decisions, but he owned it. He was a guy who had real accountability in his life, starting with his accountability to God. So I think I'd like to hang with those 3.
Love it, love it. If I was thinking accountability, I would probably also think Jesus. I would think Jelly Roll, who is one of my favorite, just inspirational people. Just own the addiction, own his path, own going to prison. And then, oh gosh, it's hard to think of a third one because you're so right. Our society isn't very accountable. So I'm going to take those 2 for sure. Our final question is a final advice question. One quick piece of advice here before we close up, that would you offer to a young dad who's just barely starting out his fatherhood journey? He's age 18 to 22. What's one piece of advice that you would offer to him?
Yeah, don't waste a moment. It will go by so fast. And you have to be intentional in everything you do. It can feel exhausting. Sometimes we go, can I just have a day for myself, please? But the reality is, you signed up for this journey when you had a kid, and you've only got one shot with them. And if you're tired and exhausted, be tired and exhausted with your kid. Let them know, Daddy's really tired today. We're gonna just listen to music and read books quietly, or let them know that your heart is heavy. Let it be real, but own it. Own every moment of every day intentionally, looking at your life and the responsibility that you have with these children, and be intentional. It'll go so fast. And if you say, well, I'll work on it next year or next week or next month, it'll be gone. And if your kid says, can you play? Yes. The answer is always yes. You always are using your time because they have no concept of time. And if you say, I'll do it in an hour, it's gone. They don't want it. I'll do it tomorrow. They don't want it then. They want it now. You've missed an opportunity. So live very aware of the short amount of time you've got to make the decisions you want to get the result you're looking for as you pour into these children to be responsible contributors to society who love their Lord and their family and grow up to be good contributors. That's going to take intentional work. Don't give up. Be very focused. The time is going quick.
Yeah. No, that's also very true. It goes so fast, it's a blink of an eye, right? So, Robert, thank you so much for sharing your insights, experience with us today, with our listeners, with my listeners, with myself. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and I'm sure our listeners have gained valuable knowledge and are a little bit scared of the word accountability. Now, as we wrap up, for those interested in learning more about Robert's work or getting a copy of his book, Nobody Cares Until You Do, be sure to visit RenaissanceExecutiveForumsDallas.com. Does that sound right?
Actually, don't go there. Go to nobodycaresbook.com. That's where you can find
Perfect.
the book. Nobodycaresbook.com. And for your podcast, I created a special URL, nobodycarespod.com. And if you put in the code word dad, I will mail you a copy of my book at no charge. So just go into that website, nobodycarespod.com, and put in your contact information and the code word dad. And I will mail the first 2 people who fill out that form and send it to me. I will mail them a copy of my book for free.
Nobody cares. POD
Yeah.
code dad. Perfect. So yeah, go and do that, people. Go and do it. So most leaders know what they do, but they aren't great at getting it done. Again, you can also visit the website to. Is that also a good website to learn about the tools that can help someone gain clarity, support to reach their
Yeah,
goals?
for my business site is REF Dallas. We just put in a new domain because the
Oh,
Renaissance
perfect.
is too complicated to type. So we put refdallas.com is my business website.
Perfect. refdallas.com is perfect. So that's where you can, gain that support and work with Robert one-on-one, business-wise, and, help your business become more accountable. So, Robert, as well, thank you. Thank you for joining me again. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in to the Undone Podcast today. Remember, embracing accountability can unlock your potential and help you live the life you truly want. Until next time, take care, stay accountable. Bye-bye. Bye.